All right, looks like the new participants have slowed down a bit, so it seems like a good time to jump right in here. Um, well, welcome to Giraffe 5, and welcome to our release notes overview today. If you haven't had a chance to meet me yet, I'm Holly Conrad Smith. I am the customer success manager for the Americas and Europe here at Giraffe. And I'm really excited to take you through everything that's new and enhanced in the most recent update that went out a couple of weeks ago. So thanks for joining. If you do have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to drop those in the webinar chat, and I will try to get to them as I go through the features. And if we have a little bit of time at the end, we can also open it up for live Q&A. So definitely stick around for that, and we'll be sure to get all of your questions answered. So with that, let's dive right in here. So I'm going to switch to my Giraffe screen. And hopefully you all have had a chance to log in so far and sort of get a lay of the land. But we will just go through everything that has changed since the last version, and hopefully get you reoriented to where all of your favorite tools are located now. So what we're looking at here is our home. Home in Giraffe is a place where you would manage your projects and sort of navigate through your projects in a map-based view. And you can also use the home screen for doing site searching. So if you are prospecting for new deals, looking for parcels that might meet your criteria, your home screen is a great place to do that. And we've added a lot of enhancements in these updates to make that experience even better for you. The first being your map search is right up here in the top center. That is probably the thing you're going to be doing the most in your home screen. So definitely wanted to make that take you right where you need to go. Works just like the map search before. You just type in a point of interest or a town name, and it will drop you straight to that location. Another cool thing that you'll see in the toolbar for your home screen is you have some handy measuring tools. So if I wanted to really quickly see, okay, what is the width of Venice Island right here? That's the name of this island. This is Philadelphia, where I'm from, so I'm a little bit familiar with these things. I can just drop down a really quick temporary measurement and just see what I'm dealing with. Or even if I wanted to say, okay, what is the area of this sort of parcel right here, and just get a really quick understanding of what's going on, those temporary measure tools are really, really useful. Other things that you might notice in the map as updates is the entire base map has had a major refresh. I'm going to pop back downtown in Philadelphia so we can see some of the other upgrades that have been made. One of the most beautiful things, I think, in Giraffe 5 in the base map are these new landmark buildings. This is a special data layer that gives you a more detailed view of certain buildings within major metros. It works just like the 3D buildings layer did. You can turn it on and off. So if you're not interested in seeing those fancier versions, you can turn it off. But I think they give really, really great context to your projects. You'll also notice that the colors have been refreshed a bit. And the base map also has a few more things that you can turn on and off. So if I zoom in here a little bit, we'll start to see some of those things load up. One of them being this really cool 3D trees layer. This is sort of an approximation of the tree type that is there based on a data set of tree locations. And it's, again, really helpful for giving your projects context. Another great thing that has been included in the default base map is our points of interest. So you can turn your points of interest on and off really quickly from the layers palette, but that also helps you get a lot of information about what's going on. And you can even, if you're familiar with the data table, filter and sort through points of interest. So you can say, show me all of the restaurants within this area, and it'll give you a really good idea about what's going on in that section of town. We've also added some transit labels. So just again, pop on and off those transit labels if that's something that's interesting to you. So you can sort of find where there's bus stops, and they're showing different bike locations and all sorts of really great information on that additional layer that's part of the base map. The base maps also just had a general color refresh and a lighting refresh, so it feels really bright and sunny, and the colors coordinate really well with the rest of the interface, so everything just looks a little bit more coordinated, and I think that's going to help your projects really, really look great. Other things that we've done to update the map is now you have this really handy map toolbar that kind of has all of the tools you might need for adjusting your map look. First off is the 2D, 3D toggle, which you will be familiar with from project mode, but it's now also available as a button in your home space. You have zoom controls and also the ability to zoom to the center of the project right from the map toolbar. You have some different view options, so you can change the base map style and turn on and off labels. And there's also a map search down here. So maybe you're working in the data table and you want to grab a really quick map search. It's right there available for you. And this is also the exact same toolbar that you'll see in your project view. So that's one of the big things that we really focused on in this version of Giraffe, is really trying to unify the interface between your home and your project view. A lot of the functionalities between the two were really similar, but had maybe different icons or different buttons or a slightly different way of doing things. So we wanted to make that a little bit more seamless. And that mapping toolbar is one of the ways that we have done that. Another way that we have unified the tooling between your project and your home is the layers palette. So the layers palette is now exactly the same functionality between your home space and your project. Only difference, home, you can't add any drawing layers. You can just add data layers. But, and really importantly, you can add brand new data layers to your home space now. So previously, you could only add a new data layer into a project. But now I can come in here, input my information, and I have a little handy feature server here that I want to load up. Just paste that in. And just like projects before, I can now add this service to my home screen. And because this is my Philadelphia home screen and I'm using it for prospecting, I have added a data set from Philly that's all of the currently active building permits. So that's a really helpful data set to use in that process. So now I'll just save that layer and it'll get added to my home, and then it'll be here for me to use the next time that I log in. I'm going to zoom back down to downtown to the center of my home screen. The next big update in the layers palette is just that everything's been kind of cleaned up a bit. So there's not you know, the opacity slider and everything's a little bit more compact. So you have more room to add additional layers and be able to see really well what's going on. And then the sort of adjusting the order of your layers and creating groups is also really, really easy now. So all of your layers have this little handle on the side, and it's really easy to grab that and just move things where you want them to go. And then also creating groups is really easy. Just like before, you sort of drag it on top. But now, instead of having to put in your group information in the center, you can just type in the new group name right in the toolbar. What's also nice is you can just double click on this to edit the group name. So if you didn't like your initial try, you can just edit that super easily. Can also delete this group. But I wanted to keep those two layers and just take them out of the group. So that's a really quick way to do that. Another upgrade is that there's a one-click on and off for all layers. So the little eyeball, you can turn that on and off with one click. And you can also more granularly change the opacity just by using this opacity input. So maybe I want this to be at exactly 50%. I can just type that in, or I can click and scrub if I want more of an opacity slider kind of experience like the old Giraffe 4 had. So you have a lot more options for updating your layer visibility in that way. The last big upgrade, I think, is the ability to one-click turn on the data table. So right now our data table is looking at our portfolio layer. It's looking at all of our projects, but I actually really want to take a look at the regrid parcels instead. So all I have to do is click on the table icon right there in my layer palette, and it starts to show me that information in the data table. So a lot easier to sort of quickly get to the information you're looking for. And another upgrade in that same vein is you can also switch which layer you're looking at from the data table itself. So using this drop down, this will show you all of the layers in your current project or home that you can look at in the data table. And you can just select a different one from the list and it'll pop that up. I find that especially useful if you're in a project that has a ton of layers. Like sometimes you've got 30, 40, 50 layers going on, and it's sometimes hard to scroll through all of the layers in the layer palette and find which one you want to look at in the table. So you can just find it really quickly from that drop down. You'll also notice, if you're familiar with the data table, that it's had a little bit of a refresh as well. So very, very similar functionality as previously, but the icons have been, adjusted a little bit, and a couple of new sort of quality of life improvements have been made. So in the Dealey, I see your question. The dropdown is available in the project as well. So this interface will be the same between your home space and your project. Good question though. So one of the upgrades in the data table is our filters. So now you have options to do some advanced filters. So if you want to do groupings of and or and get some really, tight filters on what you're looking for, that is possible. The draw boundary is also a really great one. This is a feature we had before, but it was a little bit difficult to find. So I really like using this one if I want to sort of filter out some items that I'm not interested in looking at. So I'm just drawing a little rectangle here, and what it'll do is remove anything from my map that is fully contained within that rectangle. So we'll start to see some of these things disappear as I move this around. You can also use it the other direction and do include and use it to focus on a very specific area. So now it's only showing me the things that are within that rectangle. You can use this geometry filter on any data layer that you can open up in your lens or in your data table. So you can use it to filter out 3D buildings from your site. You can use it to determine a specific set of parcels that you want to look at. All of those things are really, really useful with that filter. The sorting has also been updated just a little bit how it works. So previously sorting, you kind of had to just click on the column heading that you wanted to sort by, but now we've got sort options here as well. So I can sort by, maybe I want to do distance to map center, and then I want to also have it sort by name. I can add as many of these as I want to my list. And to change the order of them, I just have to click and drag and adjust. So it's really easy to update your sort of filtering logic and your sorting logic to get the information in your table that is the most useful for you. One of my favorite upgrades to the table is actually just the simple text search. So previously, if you wanted to find something, you had to filter only on specific columns. So maybe you were looking for something that was, zoned residential, but you didn't know what the column name was, and it was really hard for you to find that information. Well, now I can just search by any criteria, and it's going to show me all of my matches in my table with this highlight. So a really cool way to see how nicely that works is if I pop over to my regrid real quick and then come in here and search for, although it looks like zoning information is not loading here, which is very interesting. Maybe I just need to zoom in a little bit. Or maybe Philadelphia is just not blessed with that information in this data set. I'm not sure. But you can search like for the word residential, and then it would show you all of the matches in the table that met that criteria, highlighted in yellow, just like you saw before. There we go. It would help if I spelled residential correctly. There we go. So now we can see it's searching across multiple fields and highlighting everything that matches. And what's also cool is it filters the map as well to that search criteria. So we can see that only the parcels that meet this match are shown now on the map. So I'm going to just use that new search really quickly to find the project that I want to open up to show you what's going on new in projects. So while we do that, if you have any questions about home, make sure you drop those in the webinar chat and I will try to get to those as quickly as I can. So I'm just going to bring up my Giraffe 5 sample project.
Yeah, I'm here as well, so I'll manage any questions that are coming through the chat and surface up any ones that need to be answered on the call.
Awesome. Thanks so much, James. Yeah, so ask away. We've got another person from Giraffe here to help you out. So definitely put whatever you're thinking in that meeting chat and we'll be happy to help. Perfect. All right. So we have just dropped into our project view. And I set up this project already with a few things. It's got some data layers. It has our default base map. We've looked at all of that already in the home space. But some additional things that I wanted to look at specifically in the project context are our side panels. So your side panels in both your home space and your projects are upgraded now to be unified between home space and project. So they can, in both places, do some cool stuff. You can resize the panels by clicking on the edge and dragging it. So this is really helpful, I find, especially in things like your analytics tab, where you might have a lot of kind of things going on in here, and maybe you need a little bit more space. So I love using that in more detailed reporting. It's also useful for if you have, a element over here, and I'm going to give this a kind of land use just for our example. And maybe I want to take a look at the properties of this element that I drew, but I also want to edit that usage. So now your usage editor, which used to be on the right-hand side up here, has moved to the left-hand side. And one of the reasons for that is because you might want to adjust your usages and your element properties at the same time. So what I'm seeing here is really a unified view of everything to do with this element I have selected. So maybe I have another element here that also has that high density residential assigned. But I've got this one selected. And I can make updates to the usage that will affect both of these shapes, but I can also make additional updates to just the one I have selected that will only affect that one. So this unification of the view and being able to see everything all at once, I think, is a really nice upgrade with the usage editor being moved over to this side. Some of the other things that have moved to this side are the settings. So project settings also used to be on your right-hand side over here, but now it is on your left-hand side. Very similar interface to before, but you can now update anything you need to about your project here in the left-hand panel. The other items that are in the left-hand panel are your views, and views work the same way that they did before. You just set up your sort of camera angle and the layers that you want to have turned on. And then you can just click the add a new view button here, and that same pop-up that we're used to from before will come up, and you can just save that view. But now it is sort of treated as an app in this app panel. And that's one of the really nice things with this upgrade is previously our apps on the right hand were in this vertical configuration, but on the left hand they were sort of horizontally across the top, and sometimes when you had a lot of things going on it was hard to see the text and blah blah blah. So we've made all of the apps kind of a similar layout. And another nice thing about that is now when you collapse your sidebars, you don't actually lose your apps. So previously when you collapse the sidebars, it might be like, oh shoot, where is my layers palette? I don't remember where that's located, but now you have that icon to remind you. And you can just click on that app and it will open it back up. One cool thing is the usage editor will open as a flyout. So the rest of your apps will remain docked, but your usages editor will come out like that. So that's a really nice sort of upgrade there. I can open back up both of my panels, and I'm, so used to adjusting the size now that I just like to customize up my space however I want. Loving that. All right, so we've just gone over all of the side panels and the apps. The next big change in projects is your drawing toolbar is no longer at the bottom. It's now part of the top bar in your interface. The reason we went for that is because we wanted to give you as much open area in your map for drawing as possible. So we figured, there's this space in the top bar that's not getting used. Let's put the drawing toolbars there. The drawing tools are very similar to how they were configured before. So your buildings tool is exactly the same. It's got all of your building usages from the project in there. And if you click on one, you'll draw a rectangle by default. But some cool upgrades here is previously, we had this little line version where you can draw a line-based version of that building, but maybe you want to draw a polygon. So we have that option now as well. And you can draw a very interesting building shape immediately without having to, previously you had to draw a rectangle first and edit it, or just draw a plain polygon and then apply the usage. So now you can do that all in one fell swoop. And that kind of configuration of being able to select rectangle, polygon, or line is very similar throughout all of the tools. So you'll see that throughout. The next tool is a combination now of all of your sort of horizontal elements in your projects. So your landscape, your parking, and your roads and paths are all now unified in one tool. So it, takes up less space in the toolbar and you're kind of getting everything together. So I can come in here and grab this road. Works exactly the same as it did before, where you click and then double click to end, but it's just now located in this new icon that has a car and a tree together. So it kind of tells you what's going on in there. The third icon here is brand new, and this will be very exciting for our urban planners. This is where all of your land use and parcel usages are located. So previously, if you were an urban planner and you wanted to draw something, you had to draw a rectangle first and then apply the usage. There was no way to directly draw a land use usage. But now I can just come in here, grab that land use, and pop it on down. So really great upgrade for our urban planners in the group. Next tool is our basic shapes. So basic shapes used to kind of be hidden in either you knew the shortcut or it was hidden away in the more tools menu. But this is really nice if you want to just sort of throw down some initial thoughts. You're not really sure which usage it might need yet, or maybe you're just doing something graphically to kind of see how it would look. You can just use those generic shapes and they don't have any usage applied yet. So you have the freedom to change those as you need to, as you go. Next tool is your flow features tool. Same basic functionality as the previous version. These are all pre-made flows that the Giraffe team has published into the drawing toolbar. So fan favorite of things like apartments and car parks and things like that are all saved right in there. But what you'll notice, if I scroll all the way down to the bottom here, I've got some Flow 2.0 flows in this list as well. So if I grab my car park from Flow 2.0, I might notice, oh, the settings here are a little bit easier to get to. The previous flow, everything was kind of nested, and the new flow builder makes it a lot easier to surface those inputs. We'll take a look later on in the presentation at how to actually build a new flow and what that kind of looks like. But just be aware that more changes are coming in that vein, and probably more Flow 2.0s will get added to this list as we go. The next tool here is just our annotations. Same functionality as before, but a new icon. And then the last tool here is our measuring tools. So we've got the same temporary tape measure that you had in your home space, but you've also got your dimension tools here as well. So if you needed to pop down a permanent dimension, you can do that from that tool. And then probably what is the most exciting upgrade about the drawing toolbar is that now every single drawing command that's available in Giraffe is surfaced in your more drawing tools. So previously we had a lot of really cool tools that some people didn't even know about because they were hidden in the command line. The command line is still there if you love it. You still just click spacebar, and you can search for, any tool that you might want to use from the list of all of the drawing tools. But now you can also get to those tools from more drawing tools. So things like your base point move and base point rotate that are really popular. You can just do that straight from the toolbar now, which is really, really helpful, I think. There's also been some upgrades to our snaps and grids. The first thing being this smart snap, which I really love. So smart snap will be more obvious if I sort of turn this off. I'm gonna get some things out of the way so we can see. But we'll notice when I start moving this shape around that there are some red kind of temporary guidelines that pop up that help me snap to edges and centers and points. And I'm doing all of this without holding down our, classic snap hotkey to snap. This is just there by default. So when I'm adjusting things and maybe I want this to now snap together, it's going to kind of do it automatically for me, a lot easier than it would have before. So I don't even really have to mess with base point move or base point rotate a lot of the time. I can just kind of snap it together visually using those smart snaps. But just like any of our other snaps, if you don't like those, you can turn them off. And then, smart snaps won't happen anymore if those are turned off. The other major upgrade in our snaps and grids is the align 2D view to grid. So I am going to turn on my grids here, and I'm actually going to edit the grid to match sort of the diagonal of this roadway. And I'm going to select just this spot in the roadway. I'm going to give the grid a length, so I'm going to say maybe 50 feet, and then I'll snap again to that road. And you'll see, because I had that toggled on, that as soon as I set my grid to be in a different direction, my 2D view has actually snapped to a new north. So instead of using the true north, it's using a project north based on that grid that I created. So untoggling my 2D view is always going to be true north, and then toggling back on that align 2D view to grid will make it align to my new project north. So really exciting stuff, especially lots of architects had asked for that kind of functionality, because when you have a diagonal site, we all know it's super annoying to look at it in 2D and try to figure out how to get everything aligned. So really helpful to have that align top to grid there. So with that, I'm just going to check my notes and make sure I didn't miss anything major here. No, it looks like we're ready to dive right into flows. So as I promised, we're going to take a look at the new flow builder. I'm going to give an example by laying down one of the more complex default flows, just by drawing an apartment here. And we can see, just like in the car park that I showed earlier, actually all of the apartment settings are surfaced in my properties palette. So that's really epic. It's really easy to now adjust my mix. So you can see as I'm adjusting the mix, this is updating. I can adjust my unit sizes, all of that. But what's going on in the background? And if I want to check out how this was made, I can open up the flow editor. The flow editor is going to default to legacy still for a while. So if you are used to the old flow builder that, you know, it looks kind of like this, and maybe I want to subdivide this parcel into lots. And then I get my, you know, classic flow builder with the colored nodes and the sort of tree-like functionality where I can branch out like this. If I want to build something with the new flow builder, I have a lot more options. It's also a bit more complicated, but with that complexity comes power. So if you are someone who is a computational designer and you've ever done anything with Grasshopper or Dynamo, you're going to see this and say, oh, goody, I know exactly what I can do. I'm going to dive right in. If it's not something you've ever worked with before, the sort of visual programming language, I admit it can be overwhelming at first. But the amazing thing is that you really just need, you know, that one person who's an excellent computational designer, or you just need a template that maybe the Giraffe team has given to you. And then all you have to do is look in the properties palette here to update all of the settings without ever looking at this mess of, you know, nodes and wires and things like that. But if you are interested in diving in, we have started up documentation and training for the Flow 2.0, which is, we're kind of considering it in beta right now. So it's still in open testing, but you can definitely dive in there and start learning and trying to figure out how to create your own really cool flows. So what I'm going to demonstrate today is building a flow from scratch. And I'm going to do one that maybe hopefully is inspirational for you. So I'm going to do one that's pretty simple, but will give you an idea of what's possible in the system. So the first thing I'm going to do, I have my rectangle selected here, and it's giving me some options for a starting point. I don't want to actually change the geometry in any way. I just want to dive right in and start adding some additional information. So I'm going to use the identity flow, which is the most basic possible flow. And what's happening here is the first node is reading my feature that it's applied to. So it's saying, okay, I see this rectangle. I see all the properties of this rectangle. I understand what's going on. And then it's just writing that feature back to the map. So it's, you know, sending all of the information about this rectangle along this wire. And then this write features node is just generating that geometry. So in its most basic, in some ways, this is what Giraffe is doing in the background. It's saying, okay, what are all of the properties and attributes of this element in the code? And then it's rendering that on the map for you. What we want to do is tell the Giraffe engine to do something in between those two sections. So we want to say, okay, we understand all of the attributes and features of this rectangle. Let's use that information to do something with it and then change the output based on that information. So I think what I'll do today is create a flow where the color of this rectangle changes based on the size of the rectangle. To do that, we are first going to need to calculate the area of that rectangle, see what the size is. So all of your tools are listed down here at the bottom. But what my favorite way to find a new transform or, you know, one of these node boxes, my favorite way to do it in here is to just double click on the canvas, and then you get the list of all of the available transforms. That way you don't have to remember what category it's in. You just have to search. So I want to find the area. And because I want to find the area of this feature, I'm going to connect the wire from this feature to the area rectangle here. And what it's doing now is it's saying, okay, I am going to now calculate the area of this feature, and then the output is that number, that area number. You can see that by adding an inspector. And the inspector will always tell you the information that is being created by whatever node you connect it to. So I can see that my area here is 1485. This area is in meters, so that's why it's different than what you're seeing here. But that is what that number means. So I will just delete that inspector because what I actually want to do is determine if this area is greater than or equal to a number that I determine. So I'm going to search for the greater than or equal node. And this one is a little bit more complicated. It's like, it's got A's and B's and number inputs and oh my goodness, what is happening? So if I want to figure out what I need to give this node as information, I just have to mouse over the inputs, and I can mouse over the title and see what's going on. So this one tells me it's checking if a value is greater than or equal to the other value. So the A is the value that we want to check. And then B is the value that we want to check against. So I want to check if the area is greater than or equal to 1500, say. I'm just going to put in a random number. And then the result that comes out of that is either true or false based on if the area that comes in here is greater than or equal to or less than the 1500. So you can see that if I add an inspector again, you can see that this area is not greater than or equal to 1500 because if we remember, it was 1400 and something in meters. So I'll add that one here so we can see that information next to each other. Awesome. So now we want to tell the system to do something with that true or false information, right? And if you remember back to the beginning of what we're trying to do is we're trying to recolor this rectangle based on if the area is greater than or equal to a certain value. So we need to now tell the system, okay, if the value is false, we want it to be this color. And if the value is true, we want it to be this other color. So for that, we're going to grab the ternary if. Some of this is just learning what the names of things are. But if you wanted to just search if, you would see all of the if options. And you can also, it is trial and error, right? If you're a computational designer, you know it. You try out nodes, see if it's going to do what you want it to do. And then add those in as you go. So what ternary if does is it sees the true or false from the previous node, and based on that, it applies a value. So if the value is true, it'll apply value A. If the result is false, it'll apply value B. So here is where we're going to say, okay, we want the rectangle to be this color if it is below, and we want it to be this color if it's above. And if you remember from classic Giraffe, color is just a property. So all we're going to do is write a property to the rectangle based on what that area is. So I need to find property. I'm just going to search that, and I want to write feature property. And if I don't know what that property name is, I can find feature property names from this dropdown. So this helps you sort of, it's basically the exact same list as if you were going to click add property from here. So I can search through this and see, okay, color is the name of that property. And then on write feature property, what it's doing is bringing in the feature that we want to write to. So that feature, if we go all the way back here, that's actually this. It's asking you what the property name is that you want to write your value to. And then the value is the actual element. So if I search color, I could actually build an RGB if I wanted to. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to input a color name by using string. So I'm just going to say green, super simple. And then I am going to put that into value A. Now what I actually want to do is connect the result of the ternary if to my write features. And we'll see that actually the rectangle has just become nothing. And that's because we gave it a value for true, but we haven't given it a value for false yet. So we need to put in our B value here, and that is just the exact same thing again. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put red here for my false option, and then I'm going to connect this to B, and we'll see that the rectangle immediately changed color. Now what's cool is it's going to actually adjust based on the size of the rectangle. So if I do make it larger than 1500, you'll see the inspector here says it's true, and we'll see visually that it has turned green because of that. So you can imagine the power of being able to adjust the shapes, adjust your polygons results based on an if condition. So you can say, if it has this many levels, you know, turn it into this usage. Or if it is this usage, I actually want you to add this other property to it. So you can start to do these kind of bulk logic-based actions to your project using the flow builder. So I hope that was helpful for you to see that sort of intro. We do have a whole article in our knowledge base, which I'll pop into the webinar chat, that goes through exactly what I just did. So step by step of doing the exact flow that I just did for you, so you can see how that all works together. And hopefully that inspires you to take another look. We will, in early January, have a deep dive webinar on the Flow Builder. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely come to that one. We'll be going into much more detail of a much more interesting flow in that one. All right, awesome. So that's everything that I wanted to show that's new in Giraffe 5. We've got, of course, the great new user interface with the resizable, dockable panels. We have some upgrades to your home space that just makes it a little bit easier to navigate. We have the new drawing toolbar with all of your drawing tools surfaced, those new snaps and grids. And then, of course, the brand new Flow 2.0 that is currently in open beta. So happy to stick around and answer any live questions at this time. If you don't have any questions, thanks so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great afternoon. I am just going to, if my Zoom will let me, I'm going to stop the recording so that anyone who wants to ask a live question can feel comfortable too. And if you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you and we'll get going with those. So recording has been stopped, so feel free to jump in. All right, thanks, Delia.